Hello, friends of the channel. Welcome. I want to talk today about oil and some of the misleading information that came out from the media. Now, after the aftermath of the Venezuelan intervention of the U.S., uh, we were hearing that there's going to be a truckload of barrels unleashed in the market dropping oil. Although that affected the markets in the very short term, we're seeing now that the infrastructure is not as dated. It is quite dated, and also the companies are not really willing to sell at these prices. Now, although the U.S. doesn't really benefit having extremely high prices, such as Russia does, and other countries that export, especially at OPEC, we're seeing that there's been a recent rise, and the charts were suggesting for a very long time that this will be the case. Now, coupling that with the military industrial complex, which to them, the oil price and in general, oil is the life force, it will be used more and more as we're ramping up investments, especially the 1.5 trillion that has been shared by the US administration. So let's take a look at the chart. I want to share with you this breakdown that we had. So I'm not saying that oil is going to go in all-time highs. I'm not saying that this we will see the levels that we saw back in the beginning of the war in Ukraine. But what I'm saying is that this breakdown of the chart after a while squeezes in this triangle, this falling wedge, and it's inevitable to see a breakout. And what I told you several days ago was that we're potentially going to see a breakout, retest, and then launch much further. Now, I suspect that we're going to hit the 60 levels, and I remember even telling you when we were in the low 50s that I think that we're going to go back to these levels. Now, it's not going to happen in one shot, but I definitely think that this year we're going to see increase of price of oil. There is a theory in economics that oil, because of transportation, because of the byproducts, more than 3,000 products are made out of oil, that if the increase of oil price goes up, then we will see inflation come back. Now, although that's true to some cases, there have been cases where oil price was high and it didn't affect the price of products. So there are a lot of things that come into play when it comes to inflation. So it's not necessarily inflationary. And if we look at the price of oil adjusted to the inflation that we have, it's quite low. Okay, so I do think that we will go much higher. Now, if we fall into a depression or if we have a strong recession, yes, oil is going to drop, but it's already being in such a low price range here that we should expect it to rise much, much higher. Now, I want to touch on rates for a little bit because everybody is concerned. Now, one thing I want to talk about the long term rates is that it always lags with the front rates. So we're seeing that the front rates have dropped because those are mostly easily controlled by the Fed, and the Fed announced that they will be issuing short-term bonds and buying them in it's a non-QE QE type of program. But if we couple that with past events, we will see that the 10-year and also the 30-year used to drop precipitously. So although we would see a 10% drop in the 2-year, we would see a 40% drop in the longer term rates. And we saw that during the 2008 crisis and many other periods where we had a recession or economic downfall. So the long rates are not suggesting necessarily that we're going higher, but it is suggesting that it is lagging in comparison to the front rates. I know that there's a lot of macro that nobody's buying the bonds anymore in the US and that there are not that many buyers anymore, etc., etc. But trust me, that when the US goes into a recession, an economic downturn, which it will happen, it's destined after the increase in the rise of interest rates, bonds will be the area you want to be. So there are four quadrants of investing, and once you're in an economic downfall, you want to hold dollars because 60 to 70% of the world's debt is still denominated in dollars. So de-dollarization hasn't really happened yet. Okay? And I do think that the bonds are going to be a good place to be when the economy really spirals. And it's going to happen. So TLT has been moving in a very interesting pattern. Weeks ago, I had showed that these are the levels here of support. We've touched these levels, and as you can see, we're stuck in this range here. And it's interesting to see if we're gonna hold this and move higher, or if we're gonna have to retest lower prices. Anytime we're touching 88, we come down aggressively. So I do think that in the next coming days or 2 weeks, if we don't see, pardon me, a rise above 88, then we could be destined to go to much lower prices to retest this. Okay, now there's a lot of tailwinds and headwinds when it comes to interest rates, but I do not think that we're in the process yet where the debt market breaks, metals rise much further. I think this is just a prelude with the metals of what's happening, and I think that we're gonna go. That's gonna propel the metals to go much higher, especially when the debt market spirals. When the debt market spirals and we see the debt go parabolic and go 20, 50, 70 points per day or 2 days, that's when you're going to know that the debt market is out of control and it's imploding. We haven't reached that point yet, and we're seeing here decisive pullbacks whenever we try to break out this wedge. At some point, we're going to have to come to this downfall here that I'm predicting or break out. Okay, we cannot stay here for too much longer and consolidate like this, because at some point we need to have a decisive action, and it's going to come. So those who are holding TLT, I would say just be patient, because interest rates are going to come down. Okay, we have a lot of pressures that are pointing towards lower interest rates. The much higher interest rates have not come yet, and I don't think that we're in a period yet that we're going to experience that. It will come much later. So hold on to your metals. If you're holding on to physical silver, physical gold, this is amazing. I'm going to do an analysis on gold and silver much later video. Thank you. Bye for now.